What is up, everybody? Welcome to Marvel Stand-Em Special Edition. Marvel just dropped the final trailer for November's Eternals movie, and we're here to kind of help you make sense of it. And let me tell you something. As somebody who's read quite a few Eternals comics, it's kind of tough even for me to make sense of this. What's everybody's first impression of the Eternals?
I like it the same way I like generally every Marvel trailer. Like you said, I don't know anything about Eternals. And I feel like this ad campaign is uncommonly forward and open as to trying to explain what Eternals even are. So I appreciate it on that level. It also just kind of looks like a fun movie to me. There's like a real like get the gang back together vibe going through the trailer. It seems like Ocean's 11, but they fight big dog creatures.
I don't have a lot of comics knowledge about Eternals, so I still feel a little bit lost. There seems to be just so many characters involved here. I know the MCU, sometimes it feels like it's running out of characters to introduce, and they're going to go full throttle here by introducing us to at least 10 major characters. It does seem like a lot, but we'll see.
I was not enthused by either of these trailers, and I can't think of a single time Marvel's ever dropped a trailer where I haven't been hyped for it. Like, Marvel trailers are always amazing. Like, they always manage to get you hyped. Eternals is a film that I've really been looking forward to because, as anybody who's talked to me for any period of time at all, I am a Jack Kirby partisan. Full disclosure, everybody, I'm a trustee of the Jack Kirby Museum. So, this was like some of the final stuff that Kirby created for Marvel when he returned in the late 70s. And it's some of his wildest concepts. And there is almost none of that on screen. Like, there's none of the color, none of the weirdness. This just feels like some of Marvel's wildest ideas boiled down to, like something that just kind of looks like it's been focus grouped out of existence or something. I don't really understand why I'm so resistant to this, because I'm not somebody who thinks that, if you adapt something, you got to adapt it exactly. Like, I'm not like that.
I gotta say, for beings known as Eternals, outer space protectors, they just seem just like 10 dudes. Like, and they're just wearing normal clothes, doing normal things.
The basic concept is, it was the mid/late 70s when Kirby was conceiving this stuff, and Chariots of the Gods, like the original mainstreaming of the Ancient Aliens concept, was a big deal. And so this was a guy kind of taking all of these wild ideas from Chariots of the Gods that, like, hey, what if all of these unexplainable structures in history were built by aliens, and there's like all of these Inca carvings that appear to depict space travel and flight. And so Kirby took that and ran with it and created, what if beings that were completely indescribable to man visited Earth, tens of thousands of years ago and created life as we know it, and those are the Celestials that we see in this trailer. But within that, they created kind of three races. There are humans, there are Celestials, there are humans, there are Eternals, and then there are Deviants. And, that was kind of the conceit of this. And within that, there's like a whole lot of leeway to play with. But you don't get any of this from that trailer.
Well, tell us how you really feel.
So these are two central Eternals right here. Okay, so this is Salma Hayek as Ajak, and Richard Madden as Icarus, and the two of them are the first Eternals you meet in the comics. And in the way like she was kind of set up in the comics is she's somebody that the Incas actually interacted with. She's kind of like the primo Eternal as far as the story goes, and is the one that is most likely to be communicating both with other Eternals and with the Celestials that we're going to see elsewhere in this trailer.
The sudden return of the population provided the
Now, I have a
necessary-
theory about this emergence. I think what they're talking about here is the return of the Celestials. Because the whole idea is that the Celestials were here, hundreds of thousands or millions of years ago, and they return to worlds that they seed periodically to, basically to judge them, to see how things are coming along. So if the Celestials are coming back, that's not necessarily a good thing for humanity. But again, it's just kind of presented here after they tie this into, the snap and the blip. And I think we're losing the importance of the narrative.
Some of the themes you were talking about there reminded me of Ridley Scott's Prometheus in terms of visiting and being, an indescribable creature or whatever, sort of a proto-human, starting life in new civilizations and then sort of leaving us be. Is there a similar vibe to that in the comics, Mike?
I think we could say that. And of course, the comics eventually evolved past that to some degree, and Kirby never really finished his Eternal story the way he wanted to.
If we get Prometheus in the MCU, I'll be very happy.
Can you tell us anything about this?
I think what might be happening here, so Eternals are capable of fusing their consciousness into something called the Unimined, and I wonder if that's what's happening here. On the other hand, they could just be kind of meditating on the form of what appears to be a Celestial or something. But one of the weirder things that Eternals can do is that they all kind of join together into this actual physical structure called the Unimind. Although in the comics, that was initially, kind of a more amorphous, brain-shaped thing. But that is the way that they kind of communicate with the Celestials. I don't really know if that's what's happening here, but it would kind of make sense based on the way they're all kind of focusing on something together.
I really do like the designs in this film that I've seen so far. They look really special. I wonder whether, the trailer doesn't really do it justice as kind of an epic flowing story, and when you sort of mash this together, it just looks a bit muddled.
We came here 7,000 years ago to protect humans from the deviants.
So this is interesting. Here we have, here we have him taking on this weird deviant creature, and I think one thing that's important to know about the deviants is the deviants were, again, so there's Celestials who are kind of like these perfect beings with superpowers. There's humans who are us, and then there's deviants who are actually genetically unstable. One of the things about the deviants is that no two deviant, they're not alike in any way. And what seems to be happening here is it is in ancient times, this weird deviant monster is coming out of the waters, and here's Icarus here to blow this thing away. And of course, what's probably going to happen is this kid is going to be a god came and saved me. And that was one of the key points of the early Eternals comics, which is that all of these characters whose names are very similar to mythological figures, it's this is why our ancestors were creating these godlike figures, because, these Eternals were around doing kind of superheroic things.
I'm getting big Superman vibes from Icarus.
I was going to say, I kind of feel like the answer they're going to come to is that the Eternals are kind of lame and vestigial now. I think maybe that's something that the Eternals themselves will confront, that there's this world of superheroes and nobody really needs our old-timey god nonsense anymore, because it doesn't seem that impressive. He's just killing a lizard dog creature right here.
One interesting thing that we see here is that's Gemma Chan as Cersei. And Cersei's whole deal is that she is the Eternal who always just loved humanity the most and always hung around with humans the most. And she seems to be dating or hanging out with Kit Harington's Dane Whitman. And Marvel fans know Dane Whitman as the Black Knight in the comics, and I don't know really where they're going with that here.
I feel like there's not enough Don Lee in this trailer. There was a bit more of him in the first one.
Well, we got more Brian Tyree Henry, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
So look at this big chungus.
What are we looking at here, Mike? Because a lot of people online are wondering if this is Galactus, and you think it's not Galactus at all, right?
I can say definitively that this is not Galactus. This is a Celestial named, I believe this is Arishem the Judge. And in the comics, he's like kind of the first Celestial that we meet. And this guy arriving on Earth is not a good sign for Earth. If this guy shows up on your planet, it means that you're going to be judged. And it's this creature that you can barely even comprehend what it is. You know, these things don't speak. You know, they just kind of like, they gather information and they exist in this timeless fashion. So like even their movements are very, you know, kind of hard to perceive. I think this thing looks awesome. He's kind of got like those fins on his head like Galactus, but it's definitely not Galactus. It could be kind of cool if the MCU, when they decide to introduce Galactus, kind of make him an offshoot of the Celestials. But in this case, I could say definitively that this is not Galactus. This November, if we're lucky.
I haven't seen some of them for centuries.
Hi.
Hello.
There's Don Lee for a split second.
This is what the end of
It's
the
a
world
little bit
looks
of Don
like.
Lee.
At least we have front row seats.
You know what's never saved the
Never
planet? Your sarcasm.
You know, going back to your Celestials point there a moment ago, I think I kind of see where your frustration with this movie and this concept comes in, just because where it relates to in the MCU. We just had half the population go away, and then we brought them back. I don't know why we would be afraid of some Celestial's judgment at this point. It seems like everybody in the MCU is doing a fantastic job. I'd be more afraid of a Celestial coming to our world right now and like appearing outside of my window. But within the MCU, like, I feel like they're good people who've done like pretty great things. I don't know why like a Celestial judge creature would be upset.
It does seem like there's a huge vision for this film. I wonder how it's all going to come together, because there are so many epic set pieces in this trailer.
You protected.
I'm really curious about this film.
So I believe that's Cersei who turns the bus into rose petals. Basically, like all Eternals have control over things, molecular structure. I don't know if it's possible that for the purposes of this movie, they might give each of them more distinct powers. But like at least in the early comics, like they all pretty much have like almost identical powers. But Cersei is usually the one with the most style in terms of like how she reconfigures things to, you know, to suit the needs of the moment. And this seems like a very Cersei thing to do. Okay, that looks awesome.
Kumail Nanjiani just used finger guns.
Yes. So I just want to say, like, so Kumail is playing a character named Kingo, who's kind of cool in that he's a movie star. So this guy has just kind of like used his talents and everything to become famous, and he's often in the comics he's often playing characters that you would expect like somebody to be playing in like historical epics and things like that. And who better to do that than somebody who has actually lived through this stuff? So I think what is happening here, I think this is our first glimpse at a villain. I believe this is a deviant named Crow. Crow is a deviant who is kind of like semi-villainous in the early comics, and he also like looks way more demonic. But you can see here, like, they've given him that same kind of stringy, unstable look that we've seen from the other deviant monsters. But assuming this is Crow, he does have an actual romantic history with Angelina Jolie's Thena, and like in that first Eternals story, she kind of tries to sway him over to their side a little bit, because it's like, look, the Celestials are going to come and they're going to judge this world and they're going to destroy everything. You gotta help us out here. As far as like the whole 45-year history of the Eternals, I'm not really that guy yet. By the time this movie comes out, I promise everybody I'll be able to speak with much more authority.
See where your Superman vibes come in,
Yeah.
Kirsten.
Playing Connect 4 here, classic game. Ruined by Richard Madden.
See, that's a good joke. The movie's going to be great. Everybody calm down.
Let's focus on Richard Madden's fist. And
I don't know. Does everybody think I'm being a little harsh on this movie?
No, I mean, none of us can be harsh on the movie or not, because it's not out yet. You're being harsh on the trailer, which is like, I don't know, being harsh on like a piece of like hate mail you got. Like, who cares? Like, it's a trailer. If you're this cranky about the movie, something might be wrong. But I think you're well within your rights to be cranky about this trailer.
It's not that, look, it's not that I'm hating on it. Like, I'm really not. It's just that usually Marvel trailers feel different from this, and they have a really strong point of view. And it doesn't feel like Marvel knows how to market this. And that makes me nervous. And that makes me wonder if they're having doubts about what is in the can. Then again, this is directed by an Oscar winner. That's such a rare thing in the MCU, to let a director actually have their vision, that, maybe I should have a little more faith, especially since like the baseline of all MCU movies is still pretty damn good.
the good thing about you hating these trailers, though, Mike, is that when you finally see the movie, your expectations are going to be so low that you can only be mildly impressed by it as a whole.
I think it's also probably just unmarketable. It's obscure characters. There's 10 of them, plus Kit Harington, plus creepy deviant dog creatures, plus Celestials, plus it taking place immediately after Avengers Endgame and them having to answer the question of why didn't they intervene, plus being filmed outside. And it has a lot going on. I just don't think it could be that anybody could probably effectively market this movie. We just have to wait for the movie.
The comics are impenetrable. The marketing is... The film is unmarketable. So it's all going well.
Look, folks, let us know what you think of the Eternals trailer. And make sure you hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Twitter at Marvel Standem and also at Den of Geek US and at Den of Geek. And don't forget, we have our web home of denofgeek.com. We're on Spotify now, too. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the Eternals. Let us know what is your most anticipated Marvel movie, whether it is Eternals or something else. We'll be here. We'll be back next week for more with What If. We're looking forward to a Spider-Man No Way Home trailer one of these days. And we'll be back soon with everything the MCU has to offer. Thanks for watching.
Well, what's this even made of? Vibranium?
Fall collection. IKEA.